Trophy. The word itself is commonly used, certainly, but with a broad definition that means different things to different people. It is a word that also has many meanings for hunters, and is certainly sometimes controversial when discussions of hunting and hunting's role in conservation arise. By Webster's definition, a trophy describes something gained or given in victory or conquest, especially when preserved or mounted as a memorial. Given this definition, we can certainly see why the word trophy has become part of the language we use within our hunting community. Regardless of words and meanings, hunters have always celebrated the success and memories of the hunt by saving physical reminders of our days afield. And we have always been fascinated by the most exquisite representatives of species, the largest and most beautiful of their kind. The quest for trophy animals can therefore be very strong, becoming a point of obsession for some. With all human pursuits, a periodic grounding of principles and an understanding of motivations and meanings can help clarify the significance of accomplishment and ensure the survival of the pursuit itself. In this case, survival means the future health of our wildlife and the opportunity to hunt. One means of ensuring this is to ensure the term trophy and trophy hunting are properly understood. Every 3 years, the Boone and Crockett Club and its conservation partners do just that. They host a celebration of conservation success to reaffirm what is right and what is working in wildlife conservation. This necessarily involves delving into the relevance and significance of what trophy hunting really means. Across time and up to the present, hunters have kept and celebrated great representatives of nature. It is not known exactly when the display of hunting trophies began, but we do know of its importance. Man's first art applied to the walls of his cave dwellings was not that of trees or rivers or sunsets. It was of the game animals he hunted, male animals with large horns and antlers. These early artisans demonstrated an appreciation and a respect for the largest of a species. In early European cultures, castles were adorned with trophies that represented a mastery over the land and the quality of the landowner's holdings, which included wildlife. Such displays of mounted antlers and pelts served as a constant reminder of man's connection with nature and his dominion over our wild creatures, a dominion that eventually developed into a need for conservation. The story of commercial market hunting, unregulated sport hunting, and irresponsible land use is well documented for nearly eradicating animals and birds in North America, especially game species. This negative trend was overturned by sportsmen who took it upon themselves to drive forward a new concept, conservation, into the fabric of our society. The most notable figure in this early crusade was Theodore Roosevelt. Behind him, and less known, were his friends within the conservancy he founded, members of the Boone and Crockett Club. Roosevelt and other club members worked diligently to establish and gain public support for the concept of conservation. They also did something else for our wildlife. They elevated the status of big game species from that of a commodity to exploit without regard into icons for self-restraint, respect, and stewardship by the hunting community. The Boone and Crockett Club achieved this by defining what trophy animals really represented, what it meant to have them living on the landscape, what it would take to keep them there, while still allowing sportsmen opportunity to hunt. The Boone and Crockett Club's motivations for defining a hunting trophy through a measuring and records-keeping process, and then publishing trophy records books, extended beyond a desire to serve man's preoccupation for recognition. As we will learn, the genius of Theodore Roosevelt was greater than the sum of its parts. In July of 2013, a celebration was held in Reno, Nevada. Every 3 years since 1947, the Boone and Crockett Club has gathered to celebrate the largest representatives of nature taken by sportsmen and sportswomen in fair chase hunts. What was actually celebrated at this latest gathering in Reno may be surprising to some. When the largest specimens of big game are on display, it would be easy to conclude that this was a celebration of animals. Since these animals would not be on display if it were not for hunters, it would be safe to say that hunters were also being honored. Both are true statements. But such Boone and Crockett events had deeper meanings that circled back to Theodore Roosevelt and his visions for conservation. The first such Boone and Crockett trophy display opened in 1922 at the Bronx Zoo in New York City. Here the club opened its national collection of heads and horns for public viewing with a particular purpose in mind. The inscription above the entrance to this trophy exhibit read, "In memory of the vanishing big game of the world." While people marveled at the sight of huge animals from around the world, they also got angry at the thought of their possible extinction due to unregulated take. How could this be happening? How could we let this happen? The public outcry from this exhibit was so great that it reached the halls of Congress, and subsequent legislation proposed by the club aimed at the protection of wildlife and their habitats was given top priority. It may have just been a taxidermy display, but it ignited the public support for conservation that was lacking to that point. This was the intention of Roosevelt and the Boone and Crockett Club. The 28th Big Game Awards was intended to remind the hunting and wildlife management communities where we started and how far we have come. The focal point of the event being the animal trophies. Not just any trophies, but the top Boone and Crockett trophies in every category of North American game. These were not trophies of old or the good old days. The importance of these trophies is that they were taken in just the previous 3 years. The significance of this connects to the main reason why Boone and Crockett continues to record trophies, publish record books, and host these triennial events. The abundance of mature male trophies that we have today is significant.
It's pretty magnificent, really. I mean, it's amazing that there's this many big animals still that people get to go out and have the opportunity to hunt all these big animals that are here. I'm fortunate enough to be able to get to do it too. And I think it's great that everybody brings them here and lets everybody else get to see them and enjoy the stories and talking to everybody. It's just a lot of fun to get in a crowd that everybody's a hunter.
Without our success in conservation, mature trophy animals would simply not exist, or at least not in the number represented at this event, nor in the abundance required to annually fill the pages of Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young record books. The presence of trophy animals today is then an affirmation that conservation and game management are working. These are important truths that are often lost when the conversation turns to trophy animals. It's true. We don't commonly associate trophies or record books as having much to do with conservation. Perhaps this is because we are now 3 generations removed from the revolt led by sportsmen to save what was left of our dwindling wildlife populations, thus making it hard to understand why recording the size and vigor of our hunted specimens was deemed so important. But it might also be that a portion of today's hunting community and industry have so elevated and commercialized the trophy aspect of hunting that such records and recognition appear counterproductive to conservation efforts. History has shown that while wildlife having an economic value can be a good thing, over-commercialization and exploitation of wildlife for profit can be incredibly destructive. Regardless of the availability of trophy animals today, criticism can follow. One such criticism is being fostered by the misconception that all trophy animals today are being taken on private land and come at a high cost in permits, access, and guide and outfitter fees. According to Boone and Crockett historical data, and confirmed again by just walking through the trophy display in Reno and meeting the trophy owners, the exact opposite is true. Today, trophies are still being taken by lucky hunters of all walks of life, age, sex, and economic status. It is true, however, that some species in low supply and high demand, or those that require expensive machinery and manpower to reach in the backcountry, can and do come with a higher price tag. Beyond these few exceptions, thankfully, public wildlife still means public wildlife.
I'd never seen this buck before. It was a highlight when he came through. I underestimated the score when I called up my cousin and told him he's an avid hunter, and he was out in his deer stand, and I texted him, I said, I think I got a 170, 180 class deer here. Well, It turned out to be a lot more than that. Then it sunk in just what caliber of a deer this is. I got 2 boys coming up and I want to see them do something like I did. This has been a prestige of mine that I'm never going to forget this moment because, well, for one, it was on our home farm and Dad was part of it, so I'll never forget it.
It is a well-known fact that successful conservation throughout history has been initiated and funded by sportsmen. As pay-to-play users of these natural resources, sportsmen and sportswomen, including anglers, leave behind the most positive conservation footprints in the history of renewable resources. Of these groups, those selectively seeking a trophy animal are willing to place an extra envelope in the collection plate of conservation.
Started elk hunting probably 35 years ago, and with my father, my grandfather. Kind of lost it when I went to college and started working. I got away from it for a while, and then probably 15 years ago I got reinterested in hunting. Someone tipped me off that there were some special tags available if I wanted to go, and fortunately I had the resources to do that. And I did some research with the Elk Foundation, with Boone and Crockett, and even with the Mule Deer Foundation, and found out that some of the special tags that they were selling, 100% of all of the money that the tags generated went back into perpetuating the resource, went back into game management and resource management, which was very important to me.
The trophy hunting industry in Alberta is a $250 million economic impact. And a lot of that goes to our wildlife biologists and helps them take care of the game that everyone enjoys.
But are these monies being spent wisely and on wildlife? The proof was in Reno this past July. Trophies and the opportunity to hunt them would simply not be available as an option today if mature males did not still roam the countryside. A classic gauge in measuring these successes or failures in game management remains the Boone and Crockett and Pope and Young records book. Research has shown that the single most important representative of wildlife health is the existence of mature males. Such animals represent an age class indicator to individual populations. Males aging to maturity under the watchful eye of state and provincial game agencies also means the harvest taken by sportsmen is in balance with natural systems and the future perpetuation of the species. The presence of trophy game in and of itself seems like an imperfect measuring stick until reviewed scientifically.
As the old saying goes, records are made to be broken. Perhaps there should be another saying, however. Records are made to be used. One of the values of trophy record data that is often overlooked is its usefulness in trending species health and numbers. For example, trophy class specimens of white-tailed deer, stone sheep, Dall sheep, desert sheep, and grizzly bears are becoming more common afield based on data compiled for the 28th Big Game Awards. In comparing trophy data received from 2010 through 2012 to previous 3-year recording periods, there are many reasons for big game hunters to celebrate the current state of conservation, as well as a few causes for concern. Overall, Boone and Crockett for the 2010-2012 period received the most trophy entries in its history, behind only the 2007-2009 period. Within those entries, most categories of big game trophies are considered stable, with comparatively insignificant gains or losses. There are, however, some significant uptrends. Dall sheep up 41%, desert sheep up 59%, grizzly bear up 19%, non-typical white-tailed deer up 12%, stone sheep up 94%, typical white-tailed deer up 12%. But the data also reveals some downtrends to be monitoring in the future. Muskox down 48%, non-typical mule deer down 12%, pronghorn down 38%, Rocky Mountain goat down 16%, Shiras moose down 27%, typical mule deer down 21%. What the Boone and Crockett Club is most worried about is our caribou. Entries for central Canada barren ground caribou fell 77%, and entries for Quebec Labrador caribou fell 79% between 2007 and 2012. Sportsmen led the restoration, conservation, and management practices that have returned many big game species from vanishing to flourishing. And we expect sportsmen will do the same for caribou once the causes and remedies for decline are known. Since sportsmen's-led conservation was established, not one big game species has been lost to extinction. To learn more about trophy data from the 28th Big Game Awards, visit the awards website at biggameawards.com.
I've been scoring measuring for Boone and Crockett for nearly 30 years. And I've been to many of these events, and by far this is the best ever. We have more trophies of higher quality here than we've ever had before. It's really a pleasure to come here and see not only the accomplishments of these hunters, but just the animals themselves. One of the trophies that impressed me most, of course, was the new world record goat at over 57 inches. It's truly a spectacular trophy. And we have, I think for the first time, 3 full body mount goats, with the 57-inch goat in the middle flanked by 52 and 54-inch goats. Just a tremendous display. We also have some excellent rams from Montana. Montana keeps producing these tremendous bighorn sheep, and another thing that I really like that sometimes gets lost in all of the caribou heads that come in are a couple of woodland caribou heads that score exactly the same at 369 inches. They're just gorgeous. Lots of mass, lots of color, beautiful animals.
Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Conservation means development as much as it does protection." I recognize the right and duty of this generation to develop and use the natural resources of our land. But I do not recognize the right to waste them or to rob, by wasteful use, the generations that come after us. The lifeblood of any sustaining activity is its new participants. In hunting, this is our youth, which represents the next generation of hunter conservationists. As such, the Boone and Crockett Club expanded their awards programs beginning in 2010 to include and recognize young hunters who were 16 years or younger when they tagged a Boone and Crockett qualifying trophy. 22 of the 151 youth hunters from the previous 3-year period that accomplished this distinction were able to attend the events in Reno with their families and their trophies. The light shining from these young faces is all that need be said. Trophies, scoring, and record books mean different things to different people. To the Boone and Crockett Club and the Pope and Young Club, which hosts similar awards events every 2 years for archery-taken trophies, these are more than just lists of names and numbers. They remain a classic gauge of successful conservation and game management, a legacy for all people living in North America today. While all hunters may not take a record book trophy in their lifetime, the eternal hope that one is out there remains one of the strongest bonds between the hunter and the continuing need for conservation. If wildlife are to stay with us, and if conservation and sound wildlife management are to continue, then public hunting must also continue. But for this to happen, the general public must support our tradition even if they do not participate in it themselves. To maintain their support, the public must see the value hunting provides to wildlife via hunter advocacy and funding and support of conservation programs. For this to happen, sportsmen must step forward and tell our story. And to do this effectively, we must know the facts surrounding all aspects of hunting, including the true nature and role of trophy hunting itself. The good news is, hunting is vital to conservation, and no one can take that away, and no one can take away the incredible memories that shape the conservation commitment of hunters. That's what a trophy on the wall should really mean: memories and motivation to keep the wild ones with us. For Boone and Crockett Country, I'm Shane Mahoney. Thanks for watching.